everyone, welcome to Exploring Tarot. This is a VR to Dani Mystic's hashtag Classic Me. I think that's what it was called, or My Classic Decks. And I had a bit of a hard time deciding on what decks to show you because, to be honest, I've been interested in tarot and trying to learn tarot for a long time, ever since I was 15 years old. Sorry, no, I think I got my deck when I was 13 years old. But yeah, it's turned out to be this really long journey for me, where I then didn't do any tarot for years and years, and about 5-6 years ago I started getting into tarot again, and I started purchasing a couple of decks here and there, but I still didn't quite dive right in. I just dipped my toes a little bit by buying a couple of decks, and today I now find myself studying tarot every day and pulling a card every day. Also really into oracle decks. I have quite a little deck collection going at the moment, and I'm just really starting to get into the groove of the whole thing and starting to learn really, and I just really find the most beautiful lessons in this, on this journey. But anyway, so I had a little bit of a hard time deciding what decks to actually show you today, and I think that I might actually revisit this hashtag in about a year to see if the classic decks, the decks that I feel are classically me, are still the same in a year from now. And maybe it'll be fun to see what has changed, if I've changed my mind, if I've now, when I have a groove going with reading tarot for myself, maybe I will find that in time some other decks emerges from me, for me. So let's get started. The first deck I wanted to show you was the first deck that I actually even thought of when it came to my decks that are classically me, and that is the Earthbound Oracle. It lives temporarily now in this little brass bowl that I've got on my desk, because I want it close to hand every day. These are the lovely backs, and this deck was actually one of my first oracle decks that I bought. It was the first indie deck that I ever bought. I had never bought an indie deck before this deck, and I was a bit scared of buying an indie deck. Because it wasn't really something that I had any experience with. But this deck just completely changed everything I knew about about reading intuitively. This deck was basically the deck that's got me going with intuitive reading. It was the deck that I could pull any 3 cards without any spread or anything like that. I would just start doing random 3-card spreads, and I found that I would find meaning, and yeah, it's just this deck means so much to me, and It's beautiful. I love the artwork. This is one of my favorite cards right here. And it's taught me a lot, and it still teaches me a lot to this day. And I've had this deck now for maybe 3 years. Yeah, I think so. 3 years. And it's a deck that I will never get rid of. I don't think so ever. I've really bonded with this deck, and this is definitely a deck that I would say is classic me. It's nature-based for the most part. It's a bit mystical, sorry. It's a bit mystical. It's got owls. I love barn owls. I'm really feeling really close to barn owls. And yeah, it's just a little bit woodsy, a little bit folk magic-y, and it's just everything that I want in a deck. And this wolf, oh, look at that. It's gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. Anyway, so that was the first deck, the Earthbound Oracle. And if we continue with oracles, I think the next one I should show you is the Illuminated Earth Oracle. This was my second indie deck, I believe, that I ever bought. I really took a lot of time in researching my purchases a few years back. Nowadays it's a little bit more impulsive, so to speak. But yeah, it's this deck I searched so long for. I wanted to get it from somewhere within Europe, because I was scared of ordering from outside of Europe for some reason. I've gotten past that by now, but it took me so long to find this deck, and when I got it, I just felt an instant connection, and I've edged it in a golden metallic stamp, like an ink stamp. And this deck, and I haven't used it in a little while now, but I picked it out the other day and I put it out here in my on my desk so that I would start using it again more. Again, this is another one of those quite open oracles that's just artwork and one or two keywords, and I really find that I prefer these types of oracles because it just leaves everything so open for readings. It makes it really easy to or it really kind of tantalizes, maybe that's the word, tantalizes my intuition. It awakens my intuition, maybe that's the better word. It awakens my intuition in a way that I'm still struggling to get through tarot for some reason. I adore the tarot system, don't get me wrong. It's just maybe I haven't found a deck yet that really does this the same way that these oracles do for me. And this artwork is just fantastic. I love everything about it. In this deck, I think there's maybe just one or two cards that I feel don't fit in. But other than that, I mean, I can live with that. I can live with having a couple of cards that I don't like. Or I wouldn't say that I don't like them. It's more that I just don't like them as much as all the others. But that's, that's life. This one I adore. I think it's something about the whole being in, like, she looks like a bear, and then there's this star, and it almost looks like she's looking at the star even though it's just part of the frame. I don't know, I just really like it. Yeah, so the Illuminated Earth Oracle has also become a deck that I would say is a classic deck for me. Now, I think that I might have just one more oracle to show you, and then we can move on to tarot. This next deck is the very first oracle deck at all that I ever bought, and that is, of course, the Spirit Animal Oracle. It's not the kind of oracle that I use for readings per se. I mostly use it for one card draws, or my daily card, or not even that. I mean, it has a very specific place in my practice, and that is when I really really need some guidance, when I really need some comforting words, when I need an animal spirit to take my hand and show me the way, so to speak. This is the deck that I turn to, and it's never let me down. It's such a warm and loving deck, and the only thing that made me not use it in the beginning was because I thought it was too large for my tiny hands. So I ended up cutting off the tops and the bottoms a little bit, and then corner rounded it in a large corner rounder, and then I edged it in this dusty purple. But yes, this deck is just so warm and encouraging and just full of wisdom. I would prefer it if they didn't have all of this crowns and jewelry, but you know, that really is just a minor gripe from my part. The cards overall are just so beautiful, and I really like the little key phrases that comes with each card, and the guidebook is fantastic. I really like the guidebook in this. It always gives me such a heartwarming and comforting message whenever I need it. This one is a little bit I've never seen an electric eel in any other oracle deck, but yeah, it's a fantastic deck, and I think that it's also quite a popular deck in the community. But I mean, for a good reason. It's a beautiful deck, and oh, this little pig, this little pig. It's just, yeah, makes my heart go all fussy when I look at the pictures, and I just really love it. See if I can find my favorite, or have we already? Oh, this is one of my favorites. Look at this cow. It's so pretty. Crow. This wolf is also pretty, but it's a little bit funny that it's got like wings under his eyes. Feathers, I mean. Yeah. So that is another deck that I definitely find is a classic me deck, because I turn to it so often when I need it, and I also feel like I have a special bond with them because I've modified them this one in particular is just so much easier for me to handle now. And I also actually forgot to show the modification I did on this. I edged it with an ink pad called Aged Linen, I think, to match the wood on these cards, and I think, and the moons are also that wooden color, and I think it turned out really well. So now on to tarot. The first tarot deck I'm going to show you is the one that I felt an instant connection with, but has been troubling me ever since I got it, because I still haven't really quite learned how to read with it. But nonetheless, I do feel that it is a classic deck for me. I can't explain why. It's just the first deck I thought of after the Earthbound Oracle. This was the first deck I thought of when I thought about what decks would be classic for me. And that is the Enchanted Forest Tarot. This deck was the first deck I ever pre-ordered. I saw the artwork online and I just knew this is the deck I have been waiting for. I instantly fell in love with the artwork, but it strays a bit away from the Rider-Waite-Smith, so I still have a bit of a hard time reading with it, because I've been studying the Rider-Waite system. It does have most of the Rider-Waite in there, you can find it, but for example, the way I read Death, I don't know how to get that from the Black Shuck. I don't know, and I need to study this card and this deck overall properly in order to finally make it a deck that I can read with without the guidebook in hand. Not that there's anything wrong with it using the guidebook. I will probably keep doing that forever, but still, I also still struggle with because they've changed the minor arcana to spells. Have I put this in order? Yes, I have. They've changed it to spells, challenges, visions, and what's the boons? That's the last one. And I still have to think twice, 3 times before I can successfully match it with what suit that it's corresponding to in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. But I just feel that when I finally crack the code on this deck, that it will probably be something that you would maybe call a soul deck. I don't really subscribe to the idea of soul decks, but it just feels so me through and through, this artwork, and that's why I immediately thought of this as a classic deck for me. It also feels the closest to Scandinavian folklore that I have found. And since I'm from Finland, Nordic folklore overall is very close to my heart and something that I grew up with. So this deck just kind of gives me those vibes as well. Fairy tale-y, I suppose, but still, I just adore this deck. But again, also the white hearts as the full kind of threw me off a bit, but I can work with this. The Black Shuck, I have such a hard time with this card just reading, putting it into a reading overall, I don't know how to read that card. But this is one of my favorite strength cards ever. It's so beautiful. Anyway, that was the first tarot deck in this lineup. This is the bag that I've made for it, where it lives. Right, the next deck that I'm going to show you is also a deck that speaks to my inner child, I think, and that's why I feel like it's so classic me. And that is the Joy de Vivre Tarot by Paulina Cassidy. Yes, Paulina Cassidy, nowadays called Paulina Fay, I think. And this deck took a while to get to me, really. I didn't really, it wasn't on my radar at all until just one day I was scrolling through Instagram, I think, and a card just popped up at me, and I just thought, what is that deck? And I know that I had heard the name Joy de Vivre before, but hadn't really paid it any mind. And then when I started looking at walkthroughs, every time I looked through a walkthrough, the interest for it just grew. And then I think it was when I saw Lisa Pepes doing her walkthrough of this deck that she just finally sold me on it. Not that I needed selling, it needed selling to me. It was just that I think some of the pictures I was on the fence about. I felt a little bit maybe challenged by them, intimidated by them. This one is like definitely one that I would immediately love, whereas this one and the Fool, for some reason I was struggling with these images, and I thought perhaps this is just a deck that I need in order to face some things in me from childhood or otherwise that I need to find out why this is challenging me. And I think, as soon as it's the ones that are animals, anthropomorphic or otherwise, I'm fine with them. I just think they're really easy and lovely. But as soon as it comes to the people, some of them I really struggle with. I think it might be the super skinny arms. I don't know why. Or the super skinny waists. But it's a cartoonish artwork, so I shouldn't really be too bothered by it. But somehow I still am. This is a lovely card. Anyway, as soon as I got it in my hands, I decided to trim it, and I edged it in this copper metallic, rose gold metallic, to try and match this color here in the swirls on the back. And made it this little bag to go with it. And as soon as this is the perfect size for my hands, so I really love shuffling this deck. And yeah, I think this is my inner imagination, my inner landscape, so to speak. Especially when I'm talking to my little inner child. And such a lovely card as well. And so that's why I felt pulled to or drawn to label this as a classic Sandra deck. it also does bring me some memories to my early teens, and the art style that I used to make, or the art that I used to make as a teenager. Some of these characters really look quite similar to how I used to draw. So it just really mirrors my inner life as a kid and a teen. So yes, this deck is definitely classically me. Right, now next are two decks that are quite new to me and new to my collection. So it surprises me that I can call them classics, but I don't think I'm gonna label them like complete classics yet, but potential classic, because these two decks I found an immediate connection to. However, I have not worked much with them yet, and I haven't gotten to know them very well yet. So the first one I'm going to show you is the Tarot of Mystical Moments by Catherine Wells Stein. And although I haven't worked much with it yet, I have already modified this deck. I trimmed off the gilding to make them just ever so slightly smaller, and then I edged them in this muted green to match the backs. And I thought it turned out really, really well. Anyway, this deck has definitely got potential to become a classic Sandra deck. Again, the dreaminess of the artwork, the moodiness of the colors and everything, it just makes me go every time that I use it. And it's gorgeous. That's the only word I can say, gorgeous. It's just, and so evocative. I really love this artwork. And it's so funny because I never ever felt drawn to the Oracle of Mystical Moments until I got this deck. Now I'm sitting and watching walkthroughs of the Oracle thinking I need this as well, but there's something about the excuse me, the keywords in the Oracle that I don't like, but I think I might be able to ignore the keywords if I don't want to use them. Anyway, so this deck definitely has the potential to become a classic Sandra deck. It's already given me some really interesting readings, and I just, every time, like I said, every time I use it, I get this giddy feeling, and I don't think that I'm going to stop using it for quite some time. And it looks so beautiful on my desk in my card stand as well when I pull my daily cards. So this I'm going to have to revisit next year when I'm doing the follow-up to this hashtag. Because yeah, this is definitely a deck that I think is going to become a classic for me. And the last deck that I'm going to show you is another one of these new decks that I still have not worked with at all because it intimidates me so much. And also because I'm still learning the Rider-Waite-Smith system. So I feel like I don't want to get into this system yet before I feel ready. However, I still have this really strong feeling that this is going to become a classic deck for me. And that is the Wildwood Tarot. This is definitely a deck that I think is going to become a classic for me. It's everything, I mean, artwork wise, that I adore this artwork, and they feel so strong to me in all ways. And I'm out of words from how much I want to work with this deck, but I'm keeping it separate for now, and yes, I just feel it in me that this is going to be a very important deck for me, and that's why I am putting this in my VR this time as a potential classic for me. I also, at the same time as I bought this, I got the Druidcraft, and I am using that at the moment, and I have modified it and edged it and given it a pouch and everything. But I use it partly as a study deck, and although I feel really drawn to it and I love the artwork and I love the deck overall, I'm not sure if it's a classic me deck, but for some reason, even though I haven't worked with this, but I have worked with the Druidcraft, I can still feel that this is potentially going to be a classic Sandra deck. And I can't explain why. It's probably just an intuition thing. I don't know. But it's a feeling that I have. And it just... I can't explain it. It's just so pretty. But anyway, since I haven't worked with this, I thought I don't really have much to say other than that it's pretty and raw and just terrifying in some instances as well. But yeah, I really, really feel that this deck is going to one day be a classic Sandra deck. This card, I think every time I see this card, I just go, this card. Yeah. So that, my friends, was it for this VR. It's my very, very first VR that I have ever done. So please let me know how I did. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, or connect with me. I'd love to make more friends here on TarotTube. And I will see you later in the next video. Bye!